to Budeshi Radio, a platform that empowers citizens with information to hold their government accountable.
Episode of Budeshi Radio right here, and we're super excited to be having this episode this amazing morning. Well, this is where we empower citizens with information to hold their government accountable, and today is no different. We are spotlighting the unique challenges faced by women awaiting trial. Joining us today, I've got Precious Adigwe, who is Program Officer, Gender Mainstreaming and Inclusion, PPDC. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to have you, Precious.
Same here.
I also have Fatima Ibrahim Kida. She is the Deputy Senior Program Manager, Access to Justice, PPDC. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning to you. You're welcome to the program. I'm also excited that you were able to make it this morning. So let's start the conversation by discussing the broader context. Give us an overview of specific challenges faced by women in pre-trial detention centers. Who am I starting with? Fatima or Precious? Fatima. All right, please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone. A lot of challenges, specifically for women in pretrial detention. I would like us to understand what pretrial detention is.
Please go ahead.
Pretrial detention is a situation where people or a woman have been arrested, but she's yet to be arraigned in the court. So she will be detained for a specific period pending when her trial begins. Now in this period, there are so many challenges women face, ranging from sexual assault, torture, issues on their medical health, unprofessional searches or even invasive ones, mental health issues, separation from family and no contact with their dependent children. So these are just so few among the other issues that women face and need to be addressed squarely.
That's interesting. Now, are there other challenges? Let me move to Precious that you might just want to highlight a bit, especially when you, see these things live on field.
Yes, okay. Currently, there have been an increase with the percentage of women who are currently awaiting trial. Initially, it was about 2.5%, but now at least that's increased to about 4.2%.
Okay.
And we are seeing that we have fewer custodian centers that are gender-specific. I think currently, as of 2022, we only have 3 gender-specific correctional custodial centers in Nigeria, and this is actually a problem because with the issues that Fatima has highlighted, it now expands and elaborates more on some of those challenges, more gender-based violence, more less access to health services, less access to psychosocial support and all of that. So when there is facilities that are gender-specific, we could see that these challenges may be curbed or can be eradicated.
Can be eradicated. That's interesting. So would you say that women, when cases are brought to, let's say, the centers, starting off from the entry point, which is the police station, would you say that women are not given the opportunity that men get? Do you get to see that, or do you get to hear that from the women that probably at the entry point they are not treated properly, they are not listened to, and then after some time you realize that it gets worse even as they get into the centers? Do you experience that?
So yes, when you talk about opportunities, I would like to think about it in a way that these are the needs in the way of needs,
Okay.
right? Because a woman is a lot. A woman has a lot she needs, quite distinct from a man. So where there are women, and also the detention centers, it's not just we're talking about detention, right?
Yes.
It's not just a police station. We have different detention facilities, up to like 22 as a nation, different agencies detaining women for different offenses. Minor and major offenses.
Okay.
So now, when they're at that point, women's needs are not really being put in place or being a priority. As a woman, what does she need? Hygiene, health, mental health, whatever it is. Like, women are not really, there's no that disaggregation to understand that, okay, these are the specific needs. It's just like a wholesome treatment, whatever it is that is done to a man or woman. Even if it's different, it's not anything that to write home about. based on the need of a woman.
Of a woman. All right. Also, to find out from you, let me go to Precious. Now, what are the after listing all of these challenges, what do you think can be done to totally, eradicate some of these challenges you've talked about, and to see that we have a more inclusive form as it concerns women in detention?
Okay, so firstly, I think that there needs to be a review of some of the non-custodial centers and options. So instead of putting some of these women in pretrial detentions, we could look at options as community service, reduction in the bail money, and access to more legal aid or legal representation, because the cost of some of this legal representation is high, and most of these women cannot afford to, to provide this bail money. So getting these options would kind of reduce the number of women in pretrial detaining, and we could understand that most of the offenses that these women commit are not as violent as what the male counterpart of commits. Some of them are mostly thefts, either sexual based abuse or just minor offenses, and these minor offenses should come with lesser sentences or lesser modalities that would definitely lead them to pretrial detention. So when there's a reform within the bail system, definitely we could see how we can reduce some of these challenges. And also we could look at the health services. More women needs to have access to soap, water, even personal hygiene like menstrual hygiene materials and all of that.
Yes.
So it is important that these things are put into consideration, and also the facilities should be gender specific. They should have facilities that ensure that there's access to psychosocial support, mental health services, and all of that. When we are putting this into consideration, it kind of help the system to ensure that these women are being protected, because let's not forget that we also have to put into consideration their human rights. The fact that they have been identified as criminal doesn't mean that they don't have rights too as well. So it is important that all of these things are put into considerations.
All right, it's still Budeshi Radio right here, and I've been speaking with the Program Officer, Gender and Mainstreaming and Inclusion, PPDC, Precious Adigwe, who just finished speaking, and also Fatima Ibrahim Kida. She's also been speaking. She's the Deputy Senior Program Manager, Access to Justice, PPDC. Now, do these women have access to their families when they are in detention? I want to find out. Do they have time with their children? Do they have time with family, at least for a specific period of time whilst in detention?
So for women, for access, it's a lot of denial in that aspect. Women do not have access to their families. Even if they have, it's not sufficient to prevent them from the trauma that denial causes them. That is one. Also, there are women that have dependent children.
Yes.
So based on the need, and now this is where the need for non-custodial sentences come in. Imagine a woman that is being charged for, let's say, theft, and then is being detained. It's a minor offense. Maybe it's better if you consider that she has a child that is dependent on her, or maybe children, she has a family, and so there are so many non-custodial sentences. You ask her to sweep the market, you can ask her to sweep the community, you can ask her to do so many community service, just so that at least even that is enough to be something that will deter people from committing offenses in the future. Yes, I think that is better than depriving people of the family life, which is enough to traumatize one. So that is something that as the Reforming Pretrial Detention in Nigeria project is we are trying to address. One way of addressing that is through our SIMS, Correction Information Management System. Okay. So we have different modules, okay. And in that modules, there's a module that tracks that contact with family and all. So in the long run, even when we are pushing for like intersectoral approaches to addressing these issues women face, it's enough evidence, there's a database to show the extent to which or the lack, and then that could be addressed.
That could be addressed. That's very interesting. Thank you, Fatima. I'll move to Adigwe now. Talking about, you spoke about, the mental health and the mental state of these women in pre-trial detention. Now, you said that they do not have access to, these needs being met at the various centers. Now, what can we do differently? Speaking practically on how these women can actually have access.
Okay, so I know that there are certain organizations, both private and government, that could come as a form of collaboration to synergize whatever services they provide with these non-custodial centers. With that, it would definitely reduce the cost of resources, and then it will bring some sort of partnership to ensure that these women have this access. Because in as much as we look at mental health as okay, it's a key for it's very very integral, because at the point of leaving this detention, their ability to reintegrate back into the society
Is
becomes
important.
it becomes difficult for them,
Mm.
and we could understand the stigmatization that comes with that too as well. So with these services and access to them and this partnership, it ensures that it reduces the costs. It also ensures that there's efficient follow-up, because some of them would even refuse to even take up some of the services, because there's one thing for these services to be available, there's another thing for the women to want to take up this opportunity. So it's also put on the part of the system and also on the responsibility of the individual. So when both partnership comes into place, it kind of ensures that there's effective follow-up, and there's the need for both the victim and both the government to ensure that everybody take part of the services that has been provided.
That's interesting. Also, how can we incorporate the legal system to better accommodate and support these women? Because you might also notice that yes, we might some people say we have laws, beautiful laws in this country, but is actually putting it into use that might just be the problem. So how do we get the legal system to accommodate, not just accommodate, but also see to it that it is actualized during pre-trial phase for the woman?
Yes, this legal system or the legislation gaps are one of the many things that we identified as a program, access to justice. Talking of these gaps, now we have laws. We have enough in this country. We have convention, we have international laws, which as a country we have ratified and we are expected to follow. We have the VAB Act, we have convention eliminating discrimination against women, we have the Bangkok rules, we have a lot of them. Now implementation, just like you said, is the issue. One way to ensure that is, one, for women, access to legal representation, which is one of the key things. Some of them cannot afford legal services, and we are trying to address that through provision of pro bono service.
Okay.
Right? And then another thing, in a country, we need to remember this. This is a country where your culpability is not determined by your guilt, but by wealth. So now, those people that cannot afford it, people at the grassroots who have committed maybe major or minor offenses, how much access do they have to legal services? And then even while they have, how much is the trial being speedy, the dispensation of justice is also something we are addressing from the part of the judiciary through support, technological support, digitalization, to ensure that there's speech to text, and that means that there's little time that is going to be required to try these cases, and then conviction, either dismiss or at least get convicted. Yes, so this is one of the, and also some policies review, and also ensuring advocacies through the Administration of Criminal Justice Monitoring Committee, who are in charge of coordination and of the criminal justice. So that is one way that if we have enough representation of people who speak on behalf of women on those kind of platforms, and also ensuring that our laws are being implemented and are tracked, and also where there isn't, there's enough advocacy to ensure that we hold our government accountable, I'm sure a lot of these issues are going to be addressed.
All right, that's interesting. I'll move to Precious now. For that same question that I put forward, I think PPDC had a program recently concerning pro bono, right, if I'm not mistaken. And what would you say, the outcome of that program in relation to pre-trial services for women?
So, Fati has actually hinted on that, and with this we see that through the pro bono lawyer system, we now have more women would be able to access legal representation, and it would kind of fasten and speedy the process and reduce the duration of women in pretrial detention. And as Fati has also said before, this is actually, legal representation is actually very expensive, and with our pro bono lawyer system, it will we might not be able to, get a whole lot of responses, but then again we can see how we can reduce the number of women within the awaiting trial within the pretrial detention.
All right,
Yes.
It's still Budeshi Radio here on Classic FM 94.3 Abuja, the station that plays every song, 10:22 as we begin to wind down for Budeshi Radio for today. Now, are there any broader social consequences for women who are detained pre-trial, and how can this be curbed?
So yes, there are enough. When we look at the root issues that even make women commit these offenses, we can look at it from the societal context, considering the social norms, cultural patterns, economic issues, health issues. So all of these things are things that need to be addressed. These are things that force women to do things that are uncalled for. And sadly, for some minor offenses, you detain a woman, someone who is just charged for theft. Now you mix her with someone who committed murder, who is charged for terrorism, and all of these things even expose those women to more risk of learning more dangerous crimes. So I think these are the things that we need to consider as a society, and in the interest of justice, in the interest of the nation, to consider it's not just about the women, but then let's also consider the long-term consequences of our decisions, especially in the legal system.
In the legal system. All right, thank you very much, Fatima. I'll be back to you for your final words. But Precious Adigwe, you want to add one or two things you just mentioned? How can we curb all of this as it concerns pretrial detention for women?
So I would suggest, like I earlier said before, we need to look at some of the bill reforms. So community-based programs that would seen as an alternative measure to detention, rather than putting these women in this pretrial detention centers, because with that we can see that you're putting the women more into activities rather than just putting them into a state where they are left redundant, or as Fasi also said too, they are mixed up with people that have committed more crimes than what they have committed. And also, we're looking at showing that there's support services, and I'll hint on the family support, because during that period of separation, a lot of these women lose their families, a lot of the children also lose their mother. Most of these women can be seen as breadwinners. In short, most of them are seen as breadwinners. And it is kind of difficult at the time where they come back into the society. It is definitely difficult. If it's difficult for a man to get a job after he gets out of incarceration, how do you think it would be for the woman too as well? So there's the need for financial support, there's a need for family counseling as well. I would hint on this specifically, where both the woman and her family are brought in together to be counseled, in order for them to understand probably what she has done, the process that she has been through, and why it is important for her to come back. And this will reduce the level of stigmatization, this will reduce the level of isolation, and this will bring about acceptance and a free flow of reintegration into the society as well. And most importantly, if they can be gender-specific programs that would speak to women who have been out of this pretrial detention, to help them come back into the society and to enable them to provide for themselves and to become financially dependent, that would go a long way as well.
All right, thank you very much, Precious Adigwe. Your final words, Fatima?
Okay, for me, I would say we have the laws in place. Let's see to their implementation effectively. For our detention facilities, let's ensure that we have the welfare unit, we have the gender unit, which is going to be there to speak to the needs of women in those facilities. Because as I speak to you, I think most of the places we have that effectively run is either at the corrections and maybe police station, but not in all of the detention centers as a nation. Also about the sexual assault, we should ensure that perpetrators of those against women in those facilities should be brought to justice. So that's it, and I'm sure
if taken into cognizance, it would do a lot for our women in a pre-trial detention. Thank you so much. I've been speaking with Deputy Senior Program Manager, Access to Justice, PPDC, Fatima Ibrahim Kida. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I also have a Program Officer, Gender Mainstreaming and Inclusion, PPDC, Precious Adigwe. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's Classic FM 94.3 Abuja, the station that plays every song, you know. Please stay with us. I'll be back to talk to a few kids who finally sent their entries, for what we asked them to write, and also giving a few more tickets, vouchers, so you can go pick up your donut and ice cream. So yeah, keep it right here. It's Classic FM. Good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen.